He refused to jump without his dog. The plane's engines roared, metal vibrating under his hands, the air thick with the scent of fuel and anticipation. Around him, paratroopers checked their harnesses, rifles slung, faces tight with tension. Yet he did not move until his companion, a wiry, intelligent mix of German Shepherd, Collie, and Husky, was secured beside him. Chips, as they called him, waited calmly, ears alert, eyes bright, as if understanding the gravity of the moment in ways words could never convey. Somewhere beneath the plane, Sicily waited, sun-drenched, deceptively calm, while the Atlantic waves crashed against jagged rocks below. Who was this dog, and why would the U.S. Army later try to forget him? Dogs have been pressed into service in armies for centuries, but in the world of modern warfare, their roles had expanded in ways both practical and profound. Across Europe and Africa, they carried messages, detected mines, patrolled borders, and, most importantly, bolstered the morale of soldiers who faced unimaginable fear. Their keen senses could detect the slightest tremor, a shift in the wind, or a danger that humans might not see until it was too late. Chips was no exception, but he was extraordinary. Donated by his family for service, his instincts, courage, and loyalty quickly distinguished him from others. Before Sicily, Chips had undergone rigorous training. The handlers taught him to obey commands under the din of gunfire, to remain calm amid explosions, to trust instinct over fear. Yet training alone could not account for what made him remarkable. A mind capable of understanding nuance, of reading human emotion, of choosing when to act and when to wait. For his handler, the paratrooper who refused to jump without him, Chips became more than a tool of war. He became a constant presence, a lifeline in a world that was being dismantled piece by the violence of man. The invasion of Sicily, Operation Husky, began in the early hours of July 1943. Ships disgorged soldiers onto beaches churned with foam, while planes carried paratroopers into darkness, each man aware that by dawn, their lives might change forever. Chips was strapped into a harness designed for men, a guardian in canine form. The paratrooper glanced at him, hand brushing along his thick, bristled fur, and whispered a promise he knew Chips could understand. "We'll get through this," he thought, and in that simple moment, the bond between soldier and dog deepened to something unspoken but absolute. Chaos erupted in the sky. Flak guns spat fire, tracer bullets sliced through the night air, and the aircraft shuddered under the strain of combat. Chips, secure against his handler's chest, trembled only slightly, ears pivoting to every noise, eyes scanning for movement. And then it happened. A sudden lurch, a miscalculation in the harness, and Chips slipped, tumbling out into the darkness. The paratrooper froze, stomach sinking. He had jumped into this war, trusting in the bond that had grown between them. And now that bond had been severed by the physics of the fall. Somewhere below, the Sicilian countryside spread like a patchwork of shadows and light, olive groves and terraced fields stretching toward distant villages. And somewhere among them, Chips would land, alone, against the chaos of battle. Hours later, the squad heard barking over the din of gunfire. At first, they assumed it was a trick of nerves, a sound carried by the wind. Then came the shots, precise, deadly, emanating from machine gun nests that had pinned them down for minutes that felt like hours. Emerging from smoke and rubble, Chips appeared, his teeth bared, formatted with dirt and blood, courage undiminished. He had found the source of the threat and attacked with fearless precision, giving the squad the precious seconds they needed to regroup and survive. He was wounded in the process, but he survived. And in that moment, the soldiers understood something beyond strategy or training. Loyalty, bravery, and love can transcend language and species. Chip's heroism did not end in Sicily. In the weeks and months that followed, he carried messages across bombed-out fields under fire, guarded prisoners, and rescued soldiers who had fallen wounded in the middle of firefights. He learned to navigate the wreckage of war with the ease of someone who understood its rhythm. The pause before a volley of gunfire, the sudden absence of birdsong, the slight shift in the wind that indicated danger nearby. Each mission deepened the bond between him and the men he protected. To the soldiers, Chips was not merely a dog. He was a comrade, a guardian, a presence that offered reassurance in a world where trust was scarce. Chip's actions were heroic not only because of his courage, but because of the quiet intelligence with which he approached every challenge. He did not charge blindly into danger, nor did he flee in fear. He assessed, calculated, and acted, often saving men who had thought themselves lost. Soldiers wrote letters home describing him, each account tinged with awe and affection. "He ran where no man could," one wrote. "He fought like one of us, and we would have followed him anywhere." Yet when the war ended and Chips returned to American soil, recognition was fleeting. Initially awarded medals for his service, they were later stripped from him because the Army insisted he was just a dog. The men who had served alongside him did not care for such technicalities. They remembered the way he had barked to warn them of hidden enemies, the way he had dragged wounded comrades to safety, the way he had offered comfort in moments of terror. For them, Chips was a soldier, and his valor transcended bureaucracy. The post-war years were quieter, but no less significant. Chips lived out his days among the men who loved him, celebrated in letters, photographs, and the memories of those who had fought beside him. The story of war dogs slowly reemerged in public consciousness, a recognition that bravery is not a trait reserved solely for humans. Courage can take many forms, and loyalty can be measured not in medals, but in the lives saved, in the bond between beings who understand one another without words. Even decades later, his legend persisted. The U.S. Army began to recognize the contributions of animals in combat, installing memorials and acknowledging the debt owed to those who fought silently, without fanfare, without expectation of reward. In classrooms and books, in documentaries and exhibits, Chip's name became emblematic of an essential truth. Heroism comes in many shapes, and courage often resides where least expected. And so, as the sun sets over fields once scarred by the weight of war, we return to that simple, enduring truth. He wasn't born to fight a war, but he fought it better than most men. He survived. The men he saved survived, and the bond between human and dog endured, a fragile thread of hope in a world that had seen too much destruction. In the dust and heat of Sicily, amid the smoke and chaos, one paratrooper and one dog taught a lesson about loyalty and courage that no medal could ever fully capture. Their story reminds us that even in the darkest hours, life persists, love persists, and heroism endures. Sometimes on four legs, sometimes in quiet, unspoken moments, but always with a heart that refuses to give up.